words. Entrepreneurship is about making a machine that creates money, that makes things happen, and that solves a problem in the world. Being an artist and a musician is about getting art into the world and having artistic integrity and all these different things. It was really hard for me to balance those things. I was getting so much pressure from my manager to sell out and get other people to make my music and have a whole team of people that would just crank things out because that's what everyone was doing. And so if you're not doing that, you're going to fall behind. Totally. It's actually really funny how disproportionately one comment that's like a hate comment affects you. It's really wild. I still remember comments that are just like along the lines of, oh, this guy will never be a real producer, or like never be a real artist. And it still sticks with me. Fortunately, I did have a lot of really good comments, and those were helpful, but they didn't nearly have the impact or the poignancy of one really pointed hate comment. But that's the thing. When you really want to be successful or you really want to make change or make something happen, you're going to polarize people. When you are traveling so much and you live a lifestyle where you're working on weekends and everyone else is working on weekdays, and then you still have to work on weekdays, you don't have time to connect with people. You don't really have time to think about and feel into what's going on for you. So for me, that lifestyle was just very draining in that it was all surface level. I liken it to eating dessert every day for dinner, lunch, and breakfast. It's like eating ice cream. It's very sugary and sweet. And after a while, you're just like, why do I feel so bad after eating all this? Eventually, I got a taste of what a real meal looks like when it comes to relationships, personal development, and all these different things. And that I couldn't unsee that. So it really made me reconsider, knowing that this was not where I wanted to go. I really reconsidered, what do I actually want to do with my life? It brought me into very turbulent mental spaces. I wasn't taking care of my body. My mind was working on overdrive to make sense of everything. And there's just some major breakdowns. I really had a tough time. I really don't think I did a very good job at building the business in that strict business way. A lot of what carried me was the music and the heart behind it. But structures, the marketing, the systems in place. I'm good at exploring new technologies. I'm not really good at implementing like automations in a way that prints money. That's just not my skill set. I have a deep aversion sometimes to capturing people's attention without their consent.
Behind the Hustle. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Behind the Hustle, the show where we fight back against success porn on social media. If you're anything like me, you're sick and tired of being bombarded with endless success stories, and you know they're just the tip of the iceberg. I interview successful entrepreneurs about the realities of their journey, the setbacks and failures, mental health consequences, and most importantly, how they endured for a long time before ultimately finding success. No matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, hopefully this is a reminder that you're not alone when things get dark and a source of motivation for you to keep going. My guest today is Jared Lucas, a former classmate of mine and a man that needs no introduction. You may know him by his Mashup DJ alter ego, Kapslap. Starting out as a college student in the early 2010s, he single-handedly built Kapslap into an internationally recognized DJ brand with accolades that speak for themselves. He's produced over 150 songs, earning him 500,000 social media followers, more than 14 million views on YouTube, and the opportunity to share the stage and festival lineups with the likes of Tiesto, Nervo, Cascade, Ludacris, Diplo, Steve Aoki, and the list goes on. But after a successful and colorful decade in the fast lane, Jared recently announced his retirement from the world of DJing. Today, we explore the underbelly of building a DJ brand, peeking behind the glamour and success to understand the toll it's taken on Jared's mental health, why it's time to move on, and what's next. This is going to be a good one. Jared, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it, man. You said single-handedly built this DJ empire. I definitely will. It was not a single-handed effort. I had an incredible team that really helped me out in every stage. So it was definitely a team effort. Yeah.
Of course, we'll get into that. Was just a little bit of hyping up my homie.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. What you built was still impressive. So I wanted to start in the early days, those college days at Lehigh University. How did you have an interest in music coming into college? How did you discover mashups, DJing? What piqued your interest in it at the very beginning?
I've always been musical. I've played drums and guitar almost for the majority of my life. I never really thought that I would be a DJ or had a desire to be a DJ, except coming into college and in our fraternity, seeing the opportunity, it was just there. When we brought this one guy, Milkman, to our fraternity to play a show, I realized I could probably do this. This seems not so hard. And so I just played around with GarageBand initially, made some mashups, and then got them on the internet. And from that point forward, it really blew up. I wasn't really a DJ head or anything before that. I was very much just like a normal guy, but always looking for an opportunity where my interests aligned with what I was good at and pushing in that direction.
You said when you described how you got into it, it sounded like you've skipped over a couple things, right? Was your first, did you just go from starting to being good, or did you suck at first? What was the process of producing your first song and getting it online and getting any kind of traction? Like, you go to a Dope Man concert, you're like, this is cool. Maybe I'll screw around with mashups. How do you go from there to a produced song that someone listens to?
It took a lot of trial and error. It took a lot of playing songs in the party room and getting people to listen and get feedback on it. I remember one of the first mashups I ever made, I put it on in the party room, and then like instantly Jimmy, my big brother in the fraternity, came over and just switched the song. He's like, no, we're not listening to this. And I was like, oh, like it hurt my soul. To push through that is really important. When you are doing something that you feel is really important, pushing through those tough barriers is essential to making any kind of progress. I initially was on GarageBand, and then in the summertime taking classes, I met someone who was also another mashup DJ. His name was Greg Cantor, 5 and a Dime. He told me about Ableton. Through Ableton, the production software, I had so much freedom. I had so much more ability to create. And from there, I made a decent amount of mashups that I thought were good. And then I tried to find the niche. And the niche was mashups for raging. That was my first tagline that I came up with as Kapslap. And I went to fratmusic.com. It was basically like before Spotify, this was the place that people went to find music to play at their parties. So there would be playlists that you'd upvote and downvote, and those playlists would show up at the top of the thing. It was so 2010. So what I did was I actually got people in house meetings to go on their phones or computers after the meeting and upvote my playlist. Within an hour, I got 30 upvotes, and it would then show up at the top of the website for the whole week because the algorithm was so minimal. And people would start upvoting that and getting used to that. So I had these like Kapslap's Fresh Party Bangers or something. And I had a really popular song first, then my mashup, another popular song, and then a mashup, sandwiching in these new things with really relatable things that people would party to. That's where things really blew up. My first gig was from somebody from Bucknell who emailed me, and there was like, hey man, I love your music. You want to play at our frat? We'll give you like $3,000. I'm like, $3,000? It's more money than I have in my bank account right now. All right, sure. I got to learn how to DJ first, and then I'll be there. So I had to learn what it was like, because at this point I was only making the songs. So I had to learn how to DJ. I used this Ableton program to make the songs in a DJ format so I could play it live through software. And then I showed up at the party with this big box. I said, where's your aux cord? I plugged it in their aux cord and just played this party. It was wild. It was a lot of fun. Someone unplugged the aux cord accidentally. They tripped over it in the middle of the party. I had to go back and plug it back in again. But after that, things really picked up quickly. This is not one of the traditional grind away until at your very bottom something happens. I just got really fortunate being in the right place at the right time, using the right outlets to get popular very quickly. Just very incredible.
I didn't realize how organic this was. I was not really paying attention at the time. Jared's my friend. We go to parties. There's music. And then one day you were popular, right? So it's interesting now that I'm thinking more about business, how you got that off the ground. I didn't know about that frat music SoundCloud equivalent thing where you had people upvote you. Classic, scrappy, early on move.
Yeah.
Probably was doing that. It helps that your music was good.
That definitely helps, yeah.
Anyway.
Back in the day, blogs were the big thing. There was thissongissick.com, fresh new tracks, good music all day. I think a couple other ones, but those are the main ones people went to find music. And so I got one of the people from Fresh New Tracks, the founder of that blog, reached out to me after I had submitted music to them and whatnot, and was like, hey, I like your stuff. I want to manage you. And so I was like, strategically, this is great. If I get in with him, he knows all those guys as well. He can get my music on the blogs. It also happened to be that this guy was incredible. He was an incredible manager and good friend for my whole life since. So that was a huge step. Without him, I don't think I would have gotten into that kind of ecology of music at that time. And that was where the seed of dance music and electronic music back in 2010, it really blew up from there.
One of my later questions I was going to ask that seems relevant now is obviously you learn more skills as you went on putting on a show, having a personality, building a brand, all that stuff, which we will get into. But it sounds like beyond just being good at what you do, a big factor in your success was doing this right as the early 2010s house music boom was taking off. Do you attribute a bunch of your success to that timing?
Massively, yeah. I was aware of this happening. I saw what mashups were. Initially, my first mashup album was very different than what I'm known for. It was a throwback, like hip hop and all these other different things. Very traditional mashup. If you think about Girl Talk or all those other people, it was very much in that vein. And then the house music boom started. Someone would put on a pop song and then someone would change the song a minute later into a house song. I was like, why don't you just put those together? I'm thinking about this mashup thing and getting people going. The girls want the pop music to sing along to. The guys want the awesome beat to dance to. So why don't we just fuse those?
How would you not have awesome vocals over a house beat? But at the time, they were just one song, then the next song.
Yes, it was completely separate. And like house was just house. There was no vocals to it. It was ahead of the curve. I was really fortunate to be at the right place at the right time and to recognize that this was going to be the future. I just used the tools available to me to start with that and make these mashups. It was a wild ride. Really incredible.
Did you put out any trash early on, or were you like very hypercritical about I'm only going to release something if I'm like 80-90% confident that people are going to really like it? Because like it's impossible to be perfect, especially early on, because you don't have the skills that you developed over 10 years. So totally. Looking back, were there any speed bumps in getting going? Obviously, there was this organic wave that you were riding. Did you put out any trash? Did you make any big mistakes very early on?
When I was really focused on mashups, it was very hard to make trash. If music and the keys, like the circle of fifths, if you can take a vocal that's popular and take a house song that's popular, and then you make sure they're in the same key, and you put them over each other, it's very hard for that not to work. Yeah. It comes together so easily. I was really fortunate to have that musical ear and prowess to be able to put those together well quickly. There are a couple tracks that I listened to back again, and I did some bold plays. I took an entire song that was fully mastered, sped it up, slowed it down, or pitched it up and down. That changes the quality of the sound. So most people can't really tell, but when I listen back, I'm like, oh, it's compressed and crunchy, but it still works. Whereas if you do that to a vocal, things are still okay. You can manipulate a vocal up and down pretty well, and it's fine. I learned some of those things the hard way, putting out some things that when I look back on them, I wouldn't listen to them regularly, but people still love them.
So that's the music side of the business. Pretty early on, you had to add to your quiver the DJing and performance side of the business. And that started with your first concert at Bucknell. For people who don't know, it's a frat school. You go to parties, you put on music, and people dance. That's a little reductive, but that's essentially what it is. So were you super nervous for a show? And if not, good for you. Also, when was the first show that you were super nervous for and felt like you were transitioning to, okay, this could be a DJ business. I have to deliver something beyond music?
I definitely was nervous the first show. Fortunately, the stakes were very low. It felt very loose. Like I could go into it and just go for it. But I prepared. I was thinking very much about the brand. And that brand was very specific towards this frat mashup party thing. So I made tank tops. I had Kapslap on it with Mashups for Raging. I had sunglasses and wore like these bands on my wrists or my elbows and like workout things. Looking back on it, very cringy. But also, once I really hit that niche hard and I was getting a lot of these frat gigs, My manager had much more of the bigger picture in mind. He had the knowledge of, like, he was wanting to be a music manager for a good amount of time. He knew the industry. He knew where things were going. He was incredible at predicting things. And he knew he needed to transition me to original music and to clubs and festivals. Very soon after this initial first branding, we put in the time to get a little cooler or like fit into a club scene a lot more. Once we had that rebrand, more of a broader appeal, not just the frats, but anyone that would go to a club or a festival would come and see that kind of stuff. That was huge to shift the brand from Mashups to original music. That was one of the biggest things that I had imposter syndrome over, where I knew that I was really good at making these mashups. I was one of the best in the world, but making a full original song, there's a lot that goes into production. You have to be incredibly musical. You have to write everything, master it, mix it. There's so many factors, and then you put it out. It's a lot. Knowing that, I guess the next scariest moment was probably when I played my first festival.
How much further along was this, just for context? So you have the Bucknell show, then I assume chronologically you're posting on blogs and you start getting attention and the manager picks you up. I assume you're playing through word of mouth, other universities, that's paying some bills. Once the manager comes on, you start to formalize the brand a little bit, and then that ultimately leads to a festival. So how long was that period of time?
That was about 3 years. So it really wasn't that long. It was really putting in the time from 2010, which I was a junior in college, 2010 to 2013, which is just like right out of college. I went from making, I don't know, a few $1,000s, low stakes, to I think I grossed $400,000 in 2013 or maybe 2014. I look back on some of my tax returns and I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea what I was doing. I almost feel like I'm the Benjamin Button of entrepreneurship and making money. I got really lucky really fast, and then things just tapered off afterwards. Entrepreneurship is about making a machine that creates money, that makes things happen, and that solves a problem in the world. Being an artist and a musician is about getting art into the world and having artistic integrity and all these different things. It was really hard for me to balance those things. I was getting so much pressure from my manager to sell out and get other people to make my music and have a whole team of people that would just crank things out because that's what everyone was doing. And so if you're not doing that, you're going to fall behind. It was just really hard for my artistic flame to catch up to this business that was being built. I felt the need to stay on track with being really good at making original music. My first original song took me 2 years to make. I spent from 2013 to 2015 on YouTube looking up all these things and locking myself in a room, trying to make it perfect, as opposed to like making a bunch of shitty songs and like eventually getting traction. I already had traction. I had to make a product that was up at the same caliber as the professionals. So it was really hard. If I was really focused on this as a business, I would have done what most other people do, which is hire people to crank out songs for you. People that have more experience, that can do this while you're touring.
I'm the showman, the delivery mechanism, the thing that people pay to see. You're the front end of the business.
If you want to scale, you really have to keep up with demand. That's really hard to do if you're one person making music. The business aspect of it was challenging to keep up with.
That is a challenge that artist entrepreneurs uniquely face. Most business people who aren't selling art, when it becomes time to formalize the business, they sink their teeth into that. That's like what they dream about. Yes, I can't wait to delegate this and build this, and now I have a system for that. In the art, you face a unique challenge as an artist that starts to encroach upon your identity.
If people are coming to you being like, oh, dude, I love your music, it's so beautiful, it's like you just have to keep this inside of, that's not I didn't make that. Like some guy in the Philippines made that. You're like, oh yeah, totally. It's like you live a lie, and your whole life is just really, I couldn't do that. And by not doing, that's what made the machine not, like, I couldn't keep up. And that was really, really challenging.
So yeah, I do want to explore that further, but just taking a step back, you were playing the universities, and then you got your manager, and you started playing some slightly more formal venues, and then you got your first festival, right? Tell me about that. How are you feeling? What went into preparing for that and making that happen the way it was supposed to?
Yeah. So this festival, it was a Snow Globe 2013, and it was outdoor festival. I don't really remember the details of it very well, but I do remember the feeling. And the feeling was, oh my gosh, like it's come, like I'm here, I'm on stage. There's only maybe 50 people in the crowd right now in this huge building when I'm first getting ready to play. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be awful. Oh no. And then the main stage finished. My tent was on the way to every other tent. I started playing and I went for all the heaters. Like I just like really put in the music and people started flooding into this tent as the set kept going. I was just like, yes. The entire tent was full. All the way outside of the tent was full. Like people were going nuts. I like stage dove, did crowd dive. It was absolutely incredible. But in the beginning, I was like, oh no, this is going to ruin me. I'm going to never get booked again in any festival. Oh, all you can do is play. Keep your head down and do it and see what happens.
I have a lot of questions about the DJ business, and I think we need to start with what goes into producing a show and some questions around that. So I'll start with a hard question that I think a lot of other people are wondering. How much of a DJ getting up there and playing a set is just pushing a button and hyping up the crowd, as opposed to mixing live and really reading the room and taking people's hearts on a journey?
Yes, there is a spectrum like any other art. There's one end, which is the turntablist, someone who's scratching or putting on records, playing intimately with every song. Then there's the other side of the spectrum, people who play EDC or big festivals that have to be synced up with everything. There has to be lights, visuals that go with everything. And so they literally have to make sets that people are like, okay, this is going to be the music. So when this happens, trigger all these other things. There's no freedom when you're on the really big stage. It's a spectrum. I actually started out making these longer edits of 10 to 15 minutes when I was first doing these frat parties. I would just play one of those edits and then do a bunch of effects and then mix on to another 15-minute edit. Once I like felt confident enough that, okay, I can manage this, then I moved on to turntables, like onto CDJs. And those are the thing that most people play on, which you mix songs back. I got to the point where it was really boring to just try and make these full mixes or these edits and not do anything up there. So I made the edits live. I took one song and when the drop was going to happen, I would mix it into another drop. Instead of making the mixes beforehand on my computer, I would do them live in a way that was like exciting for me to do. Like there were stakes. Like if I fucked up, people would know. That let me be more energetic for the crowd because it's like, oh, fuck, can I do this transition? When I'm that excited that I made that thing, then everyone else gets that excited too.
If you really reduce it down, one of the only reasons you go to a house concert is for the beat drop, right? That sounds a bit cliche, but it's true. That's what everyone's looking forward to. So if you drop the ball on that, people are like, dude, what? I want my money back. You know what I mean? Yeah. Did you ever have any screw-ups where people are like, and then you missed the beat or something?
Back in the day, I drank a lot with gigging. And there were times where I had sets where I'd play a drop and get the next song ready. And then I would do it on the wrong CDJ. Like I would do it on the CDJ that's playing the song already. So I would switch the song and the music would just stop. I'd be like, oh shit. So I had to like, hey, we're back. Like it was I had a couple times like that in the beginning when I wasn't really sure about the equipment and I was learning the equipment. I would get a little overly cocky and think I was crushing it. And then something would happen and I would just fuck up completely. That was tough.
Another on the fly question. Reacting to something you said, stage diving. We've all seen the photos of you stage diving in Mexico. You're like, what, 6'4"? How much do you weigh?
185, something like that.
All right, so you're a lean, mean 6'4". Yeah, but still, you're a big dude. So
a lot of limbs. Yeah.
Talk to me about the mechanics of a stage guy. Like, what if it's just a bunch of like dinky little girls, like no offense to women, like small people?
Totally.
Crush them? Or is the security going to stop you? Do they tell you in advance, don't do this, but you do it anyway? Like, how does that work?
I have never had a situation in which I asked for permission. I always just went for it. And I never got chastised after. So I think it was fine. Most of the time, I had the intuition that since the crowd was so tight, there are at least a couple people willing to put their hands up. And so I'd point. I'd be like, make sure like they know I'm coming in. And they'd be like, oh, they get their hands up. And then I would jump. A couple times I overshot the people I was pointing at. They would catch my legs and my butt. And then my head would go like, almost all the way to the ground, and they had to pick my head up and get me back up again. And yeah, there was a couple times like that, but no like injuries or anything, fortunately. I'm really glad at that. You'd be surprised at how easy it is to carry someone. It only takes a couple people to catch somebody. Yeah.
The mid-20s body is something like a marvel of nature.
Oh, totally. It adapts.
So then I want to transition into some of the more business aspects of production and DJing, but just a little bit more before that on producing a show. What makes a good show? And I know what makes a good show from an attendee perspective, but what kind of prep work goes into giving people their money's worth?
That's a good question. A lot of what goes into a show is the promotion beforehand. You have to really make sure there are good promoters that are local, putting out the word that this act is coming. And you can only do so much as an act to attract. If you're a hot act, then people know that and they'll go. Like John's Summit right now, if they hear you somewhere, they're going to be there. Like it makes that happen. Auto sellout. Yeah. Once you get to that level of hype, that makes a really good show in and of itself because there are so many people there and it's so hype and there's energy there. If you don't have the people there, then it's just very lame. Like it doesn't really feel good to anyone. And you have to really force it. So people being there is one of the biggest aspects. I wasn't really on the production side of things. I usually just showed up with my gear and played, and they were the ones that got everything set. I did do a hard ticket sales run back in 2016, maybe 2017. Hard ticket is when you go to a venue and people don't normally show up there, but they only show up for specific acts. So like Irving Plaza, people will go there for an act. So we had to really make sure we did our due diligence promoting it on social media, on local stuff. And then you have to get cool visuals that go with the act. I got these things that were like pre-made 1 hour, like looping vibes. So I could play anything and it would just have like really cool things in the background. That's a really good one. CO2 is highly underrated. I love CO2 in my sets. Like I got one of these CO2 guns. So every set I would have them have these big tanks, plug in the CO2, and then you go on stage and you spray people with this gets people really excited.
I've had that happen to me. It turns it into this super immersive experience. All of a sudden you can't see anything, but the music's still going. Maybe you get some lasers. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's really about a full sensory experience when you're there. Like hearing the music, feeling the energy, feeling the emotion, and then your body is just fully immersed in the experience.
When I asked you what goes into a good show, those things you just said is what I expected the answer to be. And looking back on your answer, it's quite obvious that promotion is a big thing, but I didn't expect you to say that. The metric for good promotion is how many people are there. We know that, right. But how involved were you in the promotion process? How did you gauge whether someone would be a good promoter? What makes someone an effective promoter, and what do they do to fill a venue?
That's a really good question. A lot of times I trusted my team, like my manager, for vetting these people. I trusted the venue itself for having good promoters. Sometimes we would do on the ground, viral, boots on the ground kind of stuff. One thing in LA that I did, I was playing Create. It's now something else. I forgot what it's called, but it's a nightclub. I did this bit where I went out there in a bow tie and a microphone, and I was like, it's just like a little joke thing of, oh, so you're excited to see the Kapslap concert on Saturday. And they're like, who the fuck's Kapslap? And I'm like, Kapslap, the guy that does this and that. And they're like, what? Like, it just interviewing people in this very funny way. And so we promote that on social media. And then the people that would know about it would get around. It's a combination of social media and on the ground promotion. Nowadays, it's mainly social media though. People are just on their phones all the time, and TikTok and Instagram are like the things.
Which is a good transition into the next question about promotion. I wanted to talk about content marketing. Going through your Instagram, I went all the way to the beginning. I did a lot of scrolling. It was clear to me that you were building a social media brand presence in the early days of people treating social media as a business tool. How did your relationship with social media evolve over time? Obviously, the way people post on Instagram has changed dramatically over the last 10, 15 years, and some of your early posts you would never make today, and vice versa, because you didn't have the knowledge to make the type of content you make today back then. So talk to me about how you thought about positioning yourself on social media and how that evolves over time.
Initially, it was very much, let me take you into my life perspective. I made a lot of posts of traveling to shows, playing shows, doing videos of me at the drops, putting on my stories, doing promotions, doing live things, really interacting with fans. Like, it's really a place where I can interact with and be connected to the people that care about my music. And so for me, that was the orientation, and I wanted to provide good content for them. I had this one bit called Banana Creepin', which was a lot of fun, where you basically just eat a banana as quickly as you can with someone in the background that has no idea idea what you're doing. That made for very funny content. It was a lot of fun to do, and it was very easy as well. And I got a lot of potassium out of it, which is great. I also did slap facts where I would just say a random fact and it'd be a whole thing. But yeah, just coming up with these methods and these kind of formats where you can actually finding the formats that allow you to post regularly without sucking your soul. That's a big thing. If you're just doing the posts because you feel like you have to and you don't actually care about the fans, it's going to get old really quickly. So you have to find a way to engage as an artist and as a content creator. You have to find a way to engage with your audience in a way that is enlivening for you. If you're a business, yeah, you're speaking to the people's needs. You're speaking to people's wants, what they want, and fulfilling what they want. Providing content that elucidates that lets them know like this is something that you want. And here you go.
At some point, you got more momentum with your business, became bigger, and like your content, and then social media like started to mature, and that sort of happened in lockstep. Your content became more professionalized, and there were probably metrics behind the that reflected the business you were getting from social media. But in the early days, did experimenting with some of those scrappier formats translate to any growth for your business and actual tingle sales?
Yeah. Yeah. That was the early days where all the growth happened. It was actually the organic being with the fans, like doing the things that were like releasing content very often, whether it be music or stories or posts. That was what made most of the growth happen. And then once it got systematized, it didn't really connect as much. There was probably a period around 2017 where I probably peaked in popularity. I peaked in numbers and all these different things. And then everything after that was just maintaining. So when I look back on that, I think the heart that I had going into the content, really caring about being connected with all of my fans in a deep way. And that translates. People want to see that. Especially nowadays, there's so much content that's just, my relationship with social media has gone over a very large arc where it was initially one of my best friends. You get to see all these people and you get all this external validation. And then when things start to fall off, you get so destroyed and you see the whole thing for what it is and get disillusioned. And then there's a realization of, oh yeah, this is the way things work right now. You capture attention, you feed things like addiction. There's a lot of things that I really am very morally opposed to what it comes down to. It really is not great for society on a large scale. So it's hard for me to get excited about social media nowadays. It really depends on doing the thing and promoting the thing that I actually believe in and what I value.
Yeah. Social media, like I said, has changed dramatically. So I think a lot of people would echo that sentiment. People still have to do social media. I would argue that it's more important than ever and that every business is a content business these days to some degree. You have a ton of experience putting yourself out there. Talk to me about your relationship with that. What was it like to initially put yourself out there, and how has it evolved since you started your journey in the public eye? Less about the type of content you were making and more about what it was like to have all those eyes on you and show yourself to the world.
Oof, yeah. There's a lot. Initially, there was a lot of courage because I would get a lot of positive affirmations from people. I was making content that was very appealing to a lot of people. So it wasn't very controversial. In the early days, it was easy for me to get myself out there and be exactly who I was and express. Towards the later periods, it was very tough to express myself on social media without feeling conflicted. It was hard to put myself back out there again. I was really strong in the beginning and then it got a little funky. And I think
I didn't see that. What it's worth, everything looks pretty consistent, but it's interesting to hear about how you actually felt over the course of the journey.
And a lot of it had to do with the dissolution of my own identity, my own ego, of Kapslap as me. I spent so much time with this identity of being Kapslap. When that started to fade and wasn't getting as popular, I was so destroyed because I thought that was so much of myself. And when I really did the spiritual, deeper work of finding more of myself, I realized that this was a great outlet for me and it's a lot of fun, but it also wasn't me.
Do people, in your opinion, need to accept some degree of cringe in order to be successful?
I love that. I would say in order to be successful and find deep joy in what they're doing, the cringe is the part of you that is afraid that the way that you're expressing yourself is not going to be viewed well by people, or like it's going to be corny. That corniness is like a deep kind of, there's that cringe, like getting through that cringe is essential. Yeah, you need to have that. If you don't take risks. And if you don't take risks, nothing happens.
It speaks to a human being's visceral fear of rejection, right?
Totally.
So a lot of people will do a lot of crazy things before they subject themselves to rejection. Yeah, interesting to hear from the horse's mouth, someone who's put a lot of content out there. I'm sure you grappled with feelings like that.
Oh, big time. Yeah. A lot of times between content that I wanted to put out, my manager wanted me to put out, there were so many things that were like, oh, I don't know. And then we did it, and we're always glad that we did, because it was really about pushing culture forward. It's really important to take risks and do things that not a lot of people are doing. And when not a lot of people are doing it, it feels very scary. It's essential for success for sure.
But then you realize no one actually cares and everyone's thinking about themselves. That's another thing. Oh, that was cringy, that thing you posted, but then, okay, more about me and my life, and I forgot about it 1 minute later. But it's hard for people who are subjecting themselves to quote unquote cringe and rejection to see it from that perspective. People just have to dive in. Next question on the tangent of cringe. I wanted to talk a little bit about hate. Did you experience any of it in the comment sections? Or because so far we've been talking about the meteoric rise of Kapslap from 2010 to 2017, and that it was all organically going really well. But was there an element of hate that you had to deal with from people, and how did that impact your psyche, your ego, your business? Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Also, if you know any entrepreneurs who went through a period of real struggle or failure before becoming successful, let me know in the comments. I'd love to interview them. The more stories we can tell on this channel, the more entrepreneurs will be inspired to keep going when it gets dark and achieve the freedom we all want in life. All right, back to the video.
Totally. It's actually really funny how disproportionately one comment that's like a hate comment affects you. It's really wild. I still remember comments that are just like along the lines of, oh, this guy will never be a real producer, or like never be a real artist. And it still sticks with me. Fortunately, I did have a lot of really good comments, and those were helpful, but they didn't nearly have the impact or the poignancy of one really pointed hate comment. But that's the thing. When you really want to be successful, or you really want to make change or make something happen, you're going to polarize people. It's very hard to be the person that everybody likes. That's something I've been working through in my own life, like the people-pleasing tendencies and all these things. So you really have to find a niche, really hit it, and it will probably polarize people. Like some other people that don't like what you're doing will not like it, and you're going to get a lot of hate for that. But you have to have a strong belief that what you're doing is good, or that you're doing it for some reason you can push through.
I don't understand keyboard warriors. When I see someone put a negative comment on social media, I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You really got to just type this out so you feel good and that other person may feel bad. This person is out there doing what you probably are afraid to do. I don't get it. I would never say something bad to someone on social media, even if I deeply thought it. I guess it just comes with the territory. Clearly, you made it through all that. You mentioned earlier that your business peaked and stabilized in 2017. I want to talk about that. If you're comfortable sharing, how much money were you making gross at your peak in your biggest year?
Gross, anywhere between 250 to 400,000 per year. So that's gross. It wasn't really anything massive compared to most businesses, but it was just my own. The thing is, you don't really make that much money as a DJ. You can't really make money on Spotify very well unless you're really big. So most of the things you're getting are gigs, and most of those gigs are paying a decent amount, but it's not anything crazy. Then you have to pay out your whole team after that. It was very modest.
Yeah, my next question, what was the net margin in percentage terms for a production business whose prime revenue source is booking gigs, right?
Yeah.
Percent?
I paid out 20% to my manager, 10% to my booking agent, 5% to my business manager. Then you'd have some money that goes into marketing. I don't remember exactly how much I was putting in marketing, but it was a decent amount. So yeah, you're probably sitting somewhere around 50% profit.
It's more than I expected. I thought it would be a more capital intensive thing to facilitate, but I guess the venue foots a lot of that. That's their business.
Exactly. As a DJ,
you're more of a brand business with a team of people supporting the break. So your main revenue stream is playing gigs, as you said. And as I understand it, there are 3 ways to make more money that way: playing more shows, bigger venues, or higher ticket prices. Presumably there is a limit, like there's like a physical limit on the more show component, just because like you only have so much time and energy. So what was your biggest challenge you faced when trying to book bigger venues at higher prices?
Biggest thing was making that next step to becoming a icon. The icon status is one that has original music that is iconic, like the stuff that I'm mashing up. I started as a mashup artist like using people like Avicii and Tiesto and all these other acts, using their music. In order to make it to that next level, you have to be the one that puts out that music. And that's a whole nother beast. And the tricky thing was I never wanted this as badly as I needed to become that. Like I always said in the beginning, I never want to be like a 40, 50-year-old DJ. I just didn't want that lifestyle. And yet I still pushed this career pretty hard and really went for it in my 20s. It was really challenging to go to that next level, that next stage, knowing that's not the life I wanted to live for myself.
One of my other questions was what separates a great original DJ from a great mashup artist beyond the obvious ability to produce great originals, which brings with it its own set of challenges. You have to be talented at doing that, and that's a skill as well. Were there any other Rubicons you had to cross to go from being successful mashup DJ to like original brand name DJ?
The mashup thing was almost like the training wheels to becoming someone that can make music like that, in that you get to recognize on a very broad scale what is popular, what people like, what kind of music is really the structure of music, what works. And then when you actually make that, you have a whole set of skills. I think what makes a good mashup artist is the ability to stay in contact and in touch with culture, staying on top of the trends, what's hot, making music that surprises people. A mashup is really good at surprise. And like you take one thing and you alter it in a way that's, oh, that's crazy. I didn't expect that. It's very surprising to the palate. Whereas an original song, you have to make something that sounds familiar, but different. I feel like I know that song already. It's either you take older songs and you license them so you can make like a remake of them, or you like straight up steal like riffs from older songs so that they feel a little bit like closer. That's like a lot of techniques for big producers, like pop producers. It's like making the building blocks smaller. The mashup artist that wants popularity uses bigger building blocks. They use full songs. They use structured things like that. The pop producer that wants to make something really popular uses smaller kind of elements that are popular that would go together in a way that makes something popular.
Wow. Pretty insightful. Only from someone with a ton of DJing experience could I learn something like that. So let's, on the note of not wanting to transition into being an original DJ or being disillusioned, in your public post about retiring from DJing, you talked about it taking a toll on your mental health, and you mentioned how you ultimately didn't want that as a long-term career. You don't want to be doing DJing when you're 50 years old. When I talked to you before this interview, you talked about how the party lifestyle and the pressure to drink and be super active started to take a toll on your mental health. I wanted to transition into talking about how all that happened. Because at one point, all that was really fun and things were going well. But then one day you woke up and you're not getting as much out of the partying as you used to. And you're not getting as much fulfillment out of the career itself as you used to. Obviously, they're related and presumably fed off each other. But let's get into that transition and how you started to get disillusioned.
A lot of it had to do with loneliness. When you are traveling so much and you live a lifestyle where you're working on weekends and everyone else is working on weekdays, and then you still have to work on weekdays, you don't have time to connect with people. You don't really have time to think about and feel into what's going on for you. So for me, that lifestyle was just very draining in that it was all surface level. I liken it to eating dessert every day for dinner, lunch, and breakfast. It's like eating ice cream. It's very sugary and sweet. And after a while, you're just like, why do I feel so bad after eating all this? Eventually, I got a taste of what a real meal looks like when it comes to relationships, personal development, and all these different things. And that, I couldn't unsee that. So it really made me reconsider, knowing that this was not where I wanted to go. I really reconsidered, what do I actually want to do with my life? It brought me into very turbulent mental spaces. I wasn't taking care of my body. My mind was working on overdrive to make sense of everything. And there's just some major breakdowns. I really had a tough time.
Just generally being upset. Did you go into depression? Any serious mental health outcomes?
Yeah, it was definitely depression and anxiety, but it was mainly like my entire worldviews and sense of self breaking down. And all of that leads to a deep reconsideration of what is even real. How do I even look at the world right now? There's so many things that came up that were very hard to deal with. And I had to rebuild my entire worldview from the ground up.
Sounds like a quarter life crisis of sorts, right? Everyone finds their own way to a quarter life crisis. But here's a question for you. Do you think that if Kapslap, the brand and the business, hadn't plateaued and we still had a ton of momentum, setting COVID aside, that probably would have had its own impacts, but hadn't plateaued. In 2017, at least through 2020, there was still a lot of growth. Do you think you would have still gone through this whole existential crisis, or you would have been able to tolerate the lifestyle?
Yeah, I actually have no idea. I think a lot of the reason why I was able to break out of that was because of the hardship, like the loss of identity, the loss of feeling those big levels of success and still feeling empty or still feeling that something's missing. And then as that success is crumbling, even more is feeling just I don't know if I would ever reach out though if I was so distracted all the time. The distraction of doing the shows and the success and the money really just kept me on the treadmill, but it didn't really allow me to take that breath of fresh air and realize that what I was doing was not aligned with who I wanted to be.
Was drinking at these shows and sacrificing your body a implicit requirement?
Implicit, yes. I know a lot of DJs that are able to do it without drinking and living a relatively clean lifestyle. I actually spent a whole year completely sober. I forgot what year that was, but completely sober doing gigs. And it was still a lot of fun, but it was not the same type of fulfillment. It's something to do and it gets old after a while. Some things get old and some things don't. It's still really nice to see fans interacting with your music, singing along, loving it, and hearing the stories of how my music has affected people. That's incredible. But man, yeah, the changes in my life have been so deeply nourishing. It's really hard to look back on what I was and think that I would stay there. It seems like it had to have been a temporary thing. There's no way I could keep growing like that. I didn't have the innate drive of that's exactly what I want to do. I didn't have that vision of I'm going to be the best DJ, the greatest DJ, no matter at whatever cost. Like some people have that. I feel like Tiesto and Aoki and all these guys, like they have be the best at all costs in their mindset. And I think that's what it takes to make it back there. You have to be so committed to your vision. The thing is finding that vision. What do you care about that much?
I don't know if you've ever spoken to A-listers, Tiesto and Aoki, but are they, maybe Aoki because he's a bit younger, but is Tiesto getting fucked up at his shows? He's 50 something, right?
He's pretty old. I think he's almost in his...
He's like wiping kids and like just goes home to, or is this guy still like partying after a show?
I think he's still partying, honestly.
Maybe good at partying, not as hard, but still like commanding the room. That's probably a key tool.
I have met Tiesto, I think, one time. I met him at Aoki a couple times. He has a really healthy lifestyle, actually. Aoki's very healthy, works out a lot. I don't think he drinks at shows. He has
shows are crazy.
A really, incredible system. He's got a really good team. So, yeah.
And he posts about, we just did 3 shows in 2 days, and shows him like at the airport and like sleeping in the car, throwing a cake at someone and jumping and covered in sweat. It's hard to do that if you're treating your body poorly. Yeah. Just one more question on the demands of the party lifestyle. When you did that year sober and were playing, did you notice any negative feedback from society? Like the fans or people who were backstage with you were expecting to get that out of you but felt gypped that they didn't get it? Was that there at all?
Moments where you're with the promoters and they want you to do shots and you're like, sorry, I don't drink. And they're like, oh, okay. It's disappointing people. Because in that context, the thing that you can do to bring joy to each other is to drink together. That's just what it is. There's no other it's very hard to interact with each other in ways that are not like drinking and dancing. When you take one of those things away, I guess you're just going to dance. Backstage was tricky. It was fine. Wasn't too bad, but noticeably wasn't as electric of a feeling.
Also, there's this lifestyle mismatch. The people who want to drink with you, this might be their one night a week to let loose and have a real full experience, and getting fucked up is like a big piece of getting what they want out of the weekend, even if it's not the only thing. This is your job, so you show up and then you don't deliver that to them because it's healthier for you and better for your mental health to not participate. You make the decision to retire from DJing, and now you're transitioning into some other projects. You've done some other stuff along the way, the learning business, some stuff in Web3. I think we can start by you talking through, once you made the decision to retire, what was the next line of thinking in terms of where you were going to take your career?
I knew that it was coming for a while. I just didn't really have the plan for what I was going to do when I did retire from doing shows. And then that plan came together over time when I've realized and found this kind of coaching paradigm that I'm currently doing through the journey of doing this learning business and this Web3 thing and philosophical inquiry. It's basically this kind of growth journey. It led me look outside and find out what was wrong with the world. So then I did a lot of work on that kind of thing. And then I said, wait a minute, what about what's going on the inside? So I did a lot of internal work, therapy and spiritual practice and all these different things that led me to that. And so now I've gotten this external, internal situation sorted. And I found through that whole journey, this one coaching paradigm that's been so helpful for myself and so deeply healing and integrating. And I want to give that to more people. So that's where I'm headed now.
And this is called Unfoldment coaching, correct?
Yes, it's unfolding or unfoldment.
So your plan now is to just focus on that business as a mentor, consultant, coach, etc. Your intention to build that into an income generating activity for you?
Totally. Yeah. I'm planning on probably getting around 20 clients a week.
I guess just some questions about that business. How would you describe what value you're offering people? I'm a prospective client and I'm thinking about hiring you as a mentor or coach. What would I expect to get?
I'm working on the avatar right now of who exactly would be good for. The main thing would be for people who have already reached a level of success. They've realized that something still feels like it's missing and there's a deeper desire to find fulfillment. This coaching it's not really structural coaching. It's not, let me tell you what to do since I have the answers. It's more about being with the person. It's almost like accompaniment, welcoming and being with all of the different parts of ourselves, all the different things that are going on in our body, being deeply present. It's actually a really incredible practice that brings a deeper sense of peace and well-being. If you're looking for more peace and well-being, that's what this practice offers.
And do you have I'm just spitballing here to understand what you're offering people. Do you have specific exercises that you take people through? Do you listen to them as a pseudo therapist? What is the format for delivery, so to speak?
It's a pretty standard way of doing it. I've learned the process through the year and change of learning this coaching method. You first find a presence anchor in your body, something that feels really safe, really supportive. You close your eyes, breathe into that, feel your feet on the ground or your butt in the chair, and you bring up a crossroads that you're at or an issue that you're facing. Maybe a part of you really wants to do something and another part doesn't. There's a polarization there. We find those two parts and we welcome them into our experience. We're aware of them. This is based off of the parts work framework from internal family systems. And we get to know them. We find out why they want what they want. In doing that, as we love and appreciate them for exactly as they are, they spontaneously melt. If you want to change something about your life and you go in with a change agenda, your parts are going to respond negatively. They're going to actually do the opposite of that. Whereas if you actually get to know them and find out exactly why they're doing what they're doing, they really melt into presence. And that's there's a depth to this whole thing, but presence is being joy, being passion, being will, having a sense of self that is deeply this kaleidoscopic presence of love, really, at the end of the day. And it's a deeply spiritual thing too. You really get deep insight into what your psyche is all about, what your body is doing. It resolves a lot. You get so much more clarity afterwards. Once you circle back to your initial kind of issue, you realize so much more about what you're facing and you can go forward with much more clarity.
So this type of thing is obviously very valuable to some people, but it's also quite subjective. Is there some degree of people getting out of it what they put in? And if so, do you have a qualification process for new clients? If I show up and I'm just I need clarity, I'm just using clarity as a word, I need clarity, help me. I would presume that you might not take me on as a client if you see that I'm not really ready to accept the process that you intend to take me through. First question, how much do people get out of it what they put in? And do you have a qualification process when you're taking on new clients?
So I'm working on that right now. A lot of this business building has been learning the skills, and now I'm going into the actual formatting of building the business itself. I'm actually working with a company, Imperium Acquisition, to start this process in a way that is more aligned with deeper marketing principles. Because as much as I've had success as an entrepreneur, I'm not very good at marketing. I'm good at making machines that can print money. I just don't have that knack. And some people have that knack. I'm working with a team. That's the big thing. I've found teams whenever I've needed to do things like that can help me. And that's something that I'm going to probably iron out with the teams in the future of the team that I have, of what exactly would be the measure of success after coaching. A lot of times it's going to depend per person. They might have a developmental goal of, I need to make X amount of money. But then it's you ask them, for the sake of what? What do you want to make that money for? And then they say, so that I feel safe. Okay, so you want to feel safe. And that's the deeper goal. Feel safe through the pursuit of money. That's also a big thing. We find a developmental goal and then work towards that goal. I offer a 3-month container where you can do working towards your goal every day. And then after that 3 months, there could be a measure of success. But all of that is in a specific way of looking at the world, which is called technological attunement. It's looking at things instrumentally. There's a problem that needs to be fixed. Things are deficient. They need to be improved. That's a whole paradigm. That's a whole one way of looking. And then there's another way of looking. And that's the way that if you're in that other way of looking, so much more frees up in your system to allow you to do more of that first way of looking, if that makes sense.
It does. It very much sounds like there's this service client fit that you need to be looking for. I'm not telling you this, I'm just reacting. Just like someone who needs therapy isn't necessarily going to go to therapy until they're ready. I can personally attest to that. I probably needed therapy for a long time, but it took me forever. And like Sarah, my wife, for people who don't know, we're just like, you touched on the business side a little bit and working with teams and so on. So I wanted to talk about how you're structuring your funnel. Like, how are you going about acquiring clients? I see you're doing a lot of social media posting. You do the ice bath posts. I went to your landing page. The copywriting adheres to a lot of proven copywriting fundamentals. That's something I'm experimenting with my business right now, and I noticed it immediately. Clearly, there is a lot of thought going into acquiring clients, right? Talk me through how you think about that.
Yeah. So I've been doing it so far, like literally up until today, I've been doing it via getting help from friends who know marketing, just using my intuitions and trying things out. After today, I'm going through a whole process that's going to be like a year-long commitment of creating these funnels in ways that are going to be really good. So I don't think I have the knowledge necessary to really speak to all of the good things I'm doing for creating this funnel, other than working with a team that's literally like, they do this. I wish I could give you more.
That is an answer unto itself. Are you getting cold inbounds as a result of this stuff?
I have gotten a couple, but not nearly as much as I would have liked. That's going to change when I start doing more cold outbounds. Right now, it's mainly been inbound social media, putting up things. I've done free unfolding sessions for 5 people, 1 per day, every day. For the past 2 weeks, it's been great. Finding who are the people that I'd want to work with and who are the people that would get a lot out of working with me. That's one strategy, but it's not scalable. The scalable strategies are much bigger. That's what I'm hoping this other agency is going to be helping me with long term.
So here's a question. What you're going through now and what you experienced in the early 2010s are dramatically different. You're trying to conjure a business out of thin air, right? Presumably there's a market need and like you will be successful, but it seems like upfront that it's nowhere near as easy, nor does it come as naturally to you as being positioned at the right place in the right time when you started Kapslap. What has that been? Has that been a struggle for you, or has that been a struggle or are you really enjoying the process, or are you experiencing frustrations you didn't experience when you were building Kapslap? Like, how is it different to like be an entrepreneur and start something from the ground up without this like huge market wave coming with you?
Totally. Yeah. Oh, it's very different. It feels much more daunting because I know I have something really valuable for people that want it, like the people that would be ready for it. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the incredible transformations and the release and so much beauty. And I know I'm good at it. Being with people in that deep way, it's very apparent that I have a lot of skill, and I've gotten feedback that I am very skilled in this modality. I know that's good. The big thing is, how do I interact with the world in today's society that will get me enough clients to have a successful business, to save enough money for my kids? I'm not looking to make multi-million dollars doing something like this. It would just be a modest 6-figure income long-term that would keep me going. That's the aim for the coaching thing. And yeah, it's definitely daunting, but I have a lot of faith that I will find the right ways and paths forward via finding the right people that know those paths, getting help from the right people. That's really what it comes down to. So many of these things, we try to do everything ourselves, and it's very hard to do it all yourself. So you need to know who the right people are to work with and that experience under your belt with other people.
So a couple of questions coming out of that. A 6-figure modest income is like totally attainable, right? but presumably you can attain that once you get some reps and you figure out how you want to run your business and how to get clients and how to optimize a lot of that stuff without working 40 hours a week. There's going to be some fun time. So have you thought about how you want to spend your time if you're going to be doing other projects? What is the role that music and DJing will continue to play in your life? I know you have your DJing course and so on. So how do you see your career going forward as Kapslap is in the rearview mirror?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I love music and I love creating. I've felt much more free ever since I've officially retired from DJing because I'm not making music for the audience anymore. I'm making it for me. I'm really making stuff that I like and that I'm enjoying. I'm singing on my own tracks. I feel a little cringy doing it too because it's like I'm not a singer, but I love doing it. I really love creating. It feels like a growth edge there. I'm always going to be doing that. I'm always going to be leading people in this coaching stuff. I really want to connect with more people. I've got the music covered, internal stuff covered, and I want to connect more now with people who are focused on the external systems. Really there are so many things that are going to shit right now in society, and there needs to be change culturally. Interacting with, working with, collaborating with other people who are doing things like this is really important to me. That's the broad spectrum of what I'm putting my time into. In addition to, ideally getting married, having a kid, raising a family. That's something on my horizon as well.
How's the dating life? Are you seeing anyone at the moment?
I am a little bit. I'm not dating that much, but there is at least one person. We've had a couple dates and it's working out. We're not sure if our timelines are the same yet. We're still working on that. But yeah, I could be dating more.
Dude, you and I are actually at this interesting place where the next 10 years from now, the spectrum of things that could be is massive, right? Because I just shut down my last business. I'm starting my consulting business. You had the successful Kapslap thing, but now you're starting the similar sort of consulting-esque thing, a services business. And it sounds like that's not going to take all your time. You're going to see where it goes. And then you have these other desires. Same for me. It's going to be very interesting to see what an entrepreneurial guy like yourself gets into in the next 10 years. Based on what you described, it could be a whole lot of things. Would you say that you're open to a bright new business idea comes along that you feel pretty passionate about, that you would be open to leaning in and pursuing something like that, similar to how you built a DJ brand?
It would depend on the business. If it was making shoes or something, a lot of people are already doing it, but there's a niche for it and it could work. That's not that exciting to me. If there was something that had to do with personal development, coaching, shifting the way we look at the world, and we could make something that scales, that's exciting to me.
Yeah, that could be a zillion different things. So maybe to transition into the final segment of the interview, I can ask some more reflective questions about your journey. That's what I do with most of the guests. People who have the ups and the whole point of this interview series is to find successful people who have gone through some period of struggle and hopefully make people feel that they're not alone and give them some insight into how to go through their own. That's why I started this. What are the most valuable entrepreneurial skills you've taken away from building a DJ brand?
Courage. It's a big one that comes to mind. I would say courage is more of a value.
Because of the experience building Kapslap, you're now more capable building another business of any kind. Entrepreneurial skills, courage counts as well.
I would say something like vision, or the fact that I saw a potential, I saw a market need, and then I had confidence to be like, I can fill that need. And I did it. Gave me a lot of confidence that I have an eye for that, or that I can do that. I have the skills to be able to do that. When things are going to shit, or when you just have a tough day, or you're really having a lot of doubts, to be able to stick with something and to keep seeing it forward through the hard days and the hard times, that's really important. And I did that for a long time on Kapslap. Resilience is a huge one.
On the point of confidence, I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, including myself, and I'm working on building it back up after my last venture. You actually started a business before Kapslap in the mid-2000s called J-Bay Trading Co. That was your first entrepreneurial venture. What was building that? That presumably required some confidence to do, but you didn't necessarily have a huge house music wave behind you and weren't getting the organic growth that you got with Kapslap, which definitely augmented your confidence, no doubt. So tell me just a little bit about that business and if you had any struggles with confidence when you took the leap into entrepreneurship, so to speak.
Totally, yeah. I think the very first business I ever had was in middle school, where we would have field trips to Chinatown for a China art class. And I bought bought these Marukawa gums, these little Asian gum balls. I bought them for $0.25 a piece and sold them in school for $1. Fat margin. It was great. People loved it. I was into that. But then I started J-Bay Trading Company. I think it was in high school. That was because I was selling things on eBay. I got really good at it. And I sold some of the stuff that my dad had. My dad was like a hoarder, basically. He had a lot of stuff. So I sold some of my dad's stuff. And then I got like good at it in like a system. I was able to get things like pictures and selling it, and I got all the materials. So I had a system in the basement to get things done. Then I started marketing it. I went around with flyers and I put them around my town with a little number on the bottom, and I would rip off a couple of the numbers. So it looked like it was like, oh yeah, people are taking this. So yeah, I would do that. And then I eventually got a client that had baseball cards and gold coins, and he was a hoarder and would buy things on QVC, and to the point of it was a lot. And he was my major client. Like I would just sell a decent amount of gold coins every week for this guy and take 20%. Yeah, just worked out pretty well.
It sounds like confidence is not one of your weaknesses, right? Maybe youth experience some crises of confidence from time to time, but just hearing your story and the things you've done, you're like, I guess I'll buy this thing and sell to them for this. I'll just ask them for money. I guess I'll sell something online and do the next thing. I guess I'll just make a mashup and put it on SoundCloud or frat music. I think that mindset exists over a wall that people prevent themselves from climbing. They're like, all you have to do is just go, dude, the wall isn't actually that high. You just have to step over it. But people are like, it's this huge wall. What if I get rejected? What if people judge me for trying? I've experienced that. It sounds, just listening to your story, that I guess I'll just try this has been like never really a problem for you. Would you say that's pretty integral to the success you've had?
That's a really interesting reflection. I see myself almost as the opposite of that, which I think when I actually reflect on what I've done, that does come through. I have taken those risks, but I think I've danced with those risks so much of, I don't know if I should do this or not, and I eventually just do it. I think when it comes down to it, I take that leap. I've been really fortunate to have the support, all the risks I've taken. I was never afraid that I was going to be put out in the streets. I've been really fortunate for that. When I did the Kapslap thing, I was still in college. If it didn't work out, I could have probably gotten a job. Even just getting to college, I was so fortunate to be able to get to college. And there's so many things that led to being able to take these risks. I have so much respect for the people who don't have those things and do take the risks. Everything's on the line and they still make those risks happen. That's huge. For me, it doesn't seem like as much of a risk when the fallback, not the end of the world.
Also, your ability to maintain that perspective is among the people who have the privilege to take risks within that cohort. If this doesn't work out, it will be okay. Is also beyond a wall that some people can't climb. They get into this headspace of, if I do take this risk and it doesn't work out, I will be crippled in some way, which is ultimately not the case. You have the ability to just say, I guess I'll try this. You maintain good perspective. We see the success. You've done this thing and that thing and it's working out, and you put yourself out there and look at the growth. Behind that, you still struggle with some nervousness and crises of confidence. Do you have any super memorable flops or whiffs, or where it just, I took a risk and it just blows up in your face of any kind?
Yeah. My Kubi learning thing was the biggest flop of all time. I invested my own money into this big vision, like we'll change the world's education system with this micro learning app, and had this whole thing, and it never materialized. I worked with other people that they promised technologies that were going to make this happen. The technology took forever to happen. I had a crisis of, wait, what are we even learning? There were so many things that fell into place that everything just completely collapsed. And it was a great learning experience, but complete flop.
Was that during Kapslap?
During Kapslap, yeah.
Got it. I didn't realize how active you are on Reddit. You have thousands of karma points.
I used to
be on Reddit's heyday. I was looking at some 2016, 2017 comments. You were using that tool to validate this idea. You're like, I'm doing an app that allows people to get paid to learn, right? What was that business? And how did you try to validate it? And then why didn't it work?
The big idea came from traveling so much, listening to so many podcasts, and my mind was just expanding. I realized that so many people don't have this opportunity to spend learning about the world, about themselves, about all these different things. And I really saw they had to spend time working to earn money and not time learning. You had to sacrifice the learning time to make money to survive. And so I was already good with money and I was spending all this time learning. And I'm like, what if there was a way in which we could reverse this? We pay for education right now, but what if we could get paid to learn? And that was the driver for this whole thing.
Profound idea.
Yeah, it's big, but it doesn't really work well when it comes down to what exactly is it that you're going to have people learn for money. Then that gets into intrinsic versus extrinsic motivations. There's so many things, like it could be corrupted very easily, so many market factors. It ends up just not working, but it's a great thought worth pursuing. It got me really excited. And what I was really pointing to, it wasn't knowledge. It wasn't the information learning as much as it was the growth of someone's personality and character and awareness that I was really finding value in. That was something that I was experiencing myself. I was growing as a person, deeply spiritually, personally, emotionally, in much more than just learning the information and remembering it or anything like that. There was a desire for more people to experience this kind of expansion of awareness. There's a quote from Martin Luther King: "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." It's a beautiful quote that I love. That was one of the founding things for Kubi, but I just didn't have any good way to get to market with something like this. It's almost like the opposite of what a market would want. And anything that would prove profitable would like deeply corrupt the whole learning process. Yeah, just didn't work out.
How much, if you don't mind sharing, did you invest and lose on that business?
$60,000.
That's a lot of money to anyone, but it's not like, I know
making
people like in like $300,000-$400,000 and it all went poof. Right. You did it while you were earning money from Kapslap, which is pretty critical.
Exactly.
Last question about this business. What could you have done differently to validate or anti-validate the business and have avoided investing as much as you did and coming to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work earlier?
Finding mentors and listening to them. Business mentors. I thought I was leapfrogging because I was coming from this outside perspective of, this outside of the mainstream, and I can have this unique opinion. Like, you just have to work through it and see the vision and go for it. But you still need to understand business when you're working in the confines and the frames of business. Working with a mentor in that field, taking the time. And that's a big thing for all of my learnings. If I wanted to become a bigger DJ, I probably should have spent more time with people, learning from people how to make original music and how to do all these things. I spent the time on my own with YouTube and all these different things, but getting help from others has been the biggest learning that I could have possibly had from all these experiences.
Yeah, that gets into sort of the last section of this interview where I asked some rapid fire questions. One of the biggest pieces of advice you give early entrepreneurs, or said differently, the biggest lesson you've taken away. Mentorship, you want to get good at golfing. Do you think getting a coach will help you or hurt you? Right. I think people, especially with social media, are coming around to the idea that business is a skill and you can have people coach you on being better at business. I violently agree with the mentorship piece. I'm in the process of finding some mentors as I build my current business. That's a really valuable nugget there. Another rapid fire question. We talked about confidence and some of the things that you innately have that have made you successful, particularly around building the Kapslap business. What do you personally suck at? What are you just bad at, and how did you manage it in building the business? Because everyone probably feels self-conscious. This sixth man here sucks at something. Like, share it with us. What is it?
I was going to say building the business. I really don't think I did a very good job at building the business in that strict business way. A lot of what carried me was the music and the heart behind it. But structures, the marketing, the systems in place. I'm good at exploring new technologies. I'm not really good at implementing like automations in a way that prints money. That's just not my skill set. I have a deep aversion sometimes to capturing people's attention without their consent. That skill set is very tough for me.
That's a pretty interesting way to position being good at business, capturing people's attention without their consent. And that's what capitalism is. Like, it's not unethical to do that, but that's back to the point we made at the beginning of the interview where artists face a unique hurdle in building a business out of their art. Because art, you're in a way capturing their attention without their consent, but it's a bit more, I like this thing, I like this music, I like this painting, right? It's more artistic. I don't know how else to put it, but systematized, putting the infrastructure in place to grow that into a business is a separate skill set, and that's hard to do if you get that ick feeling from capturing people's attention without their consent, which is an interesting perspective. If you wanted back to growing this business into a huge DJ brand, which you ultimately elected not to do, you would have had to learn that skill set, presumably, and really believed in it and wanted it and been as passionate about the business skill set as you were about creating Mashups.
Totally. Yeah. There's so much that goes into it. Networking, staying in touch with people, being at the right place at the right time, reputation, reputation, collaborations. There's so much that goes into the social hierarchy of anything business, even content creation broadly. You see content creators network with each other. They live in the same place. They all live in Los Angeles, and they like have collaborations with each other, and there's like crossover with their brand. The DJ world is like that too. You want to collaborate with the right person to get exposure for your fans. So there's a lot that goes into it. I wasn't very good at that. I just was on the outside and like the mashup guy trying to fit his way into the whole scene. At least that's the way I looked at myself.
Isn't that what Blau did? I don't know.
Blau is incredible at this.
Yeah, but he's exclusively mashups and still got really big. Is that right?
No, he was mashups. Then he transitioned to original music really well. If I was going to do it again, I would follow the Blau path. If I wanted to be a successful DJ, then I would have followed the Blau path. Did it perfectly.
He picked that path and is, okay, if I'm going to make this happen, this is going to be my sole purpose in life. I'm going to build this business. And that's what he did.
And he had really great strategies. He did collaborations with other artists very early, and these people made original music. So he went from mashups to doing collaborations where he would leverage his fan base and then do collaborations with the people that were a little smaller but had better skills in production. He would learn from those people, and he made a machine. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, man. That's awesome. So last rapid fire question. Every starting entrepreneur is bombarded with advice, right? What is some of the best advice and the worst advice you've received? Feel free to answer only one of them if it's a more compelling answer. You've given some good advice. What's the best and worst you've received?
In terms of if the goal was to have a successful business, is that the big?
Generally speaking,
yes,
life. But if you have something more impactful or meaningful, feel free to share.
I think this one goes a little deeper, and it's that to be clear about what you want in your life is huge. It's a really big thing. It's ever-changing and hard to access, but when you find something that deeply resonates with your soul, like something you're like, wow, I love this. It doesn't feel like work. It really is something that you're intrinsically driven to do, and you want to do it. That's huge. If you're doing stuff out of fear of, okay, I need to make something happen, I have to pay the bills or else I'm gonna go on the streets. You can totally do that. You can will yourself to do it, but it's really hard. If you're fortunate enough to have some free time and a little bit of cushion, and you want to find your thing that gives you energy when you do it, that's what I would suggest. Take time to do that. Like soul search, like really find, because it's going to just lead to more burnout. You might have success entrepreneurially, but your life is not going to be satisfying when it comes down to it. Like that's a little big life.
You're absolutely right, but it's hard. People have to find their own paths to realize that what you said is important. I feel like I've grown a lot in that regard in the past 2-3 years. In my 20s, what you said totally didn't resonate with me. And it probably doesn't really resonate with a lot of 20-year-olds because they're young, going through life and stuff. And my perspective when I'm 43 as opposed to 33 will probably be dramatically different. Last question. Is this the end of Kapslap, or can we still expect to get music drops from now until the end of time? Because it would be really sad if I didn't hear another Kapslap banger.
Totally. I will definitely still make original songs. I've been releasing a song every 6 weeks for the last few cycles. I think I released 3 songs since I retired. And it's actually coming out a lot faster. I made a full album of music that's really connected to my heart. It's an incredible album. I haven't released it yet. I'm going to do like singles at a time, like one at a time. And yeah, it's still going to be coming out. I don't know if I've ever said this publicly, but I am making an alter ego called Relata for the next chapter of my music career.
Do we know when Relata is going to be released? It may be released before this interview comes out, but that doesn't really matter.
It is officially out now. It's pseudonymous. I don't outwardly say it's me, but it's me. It's like on the release, it's Kapslap and Relata. So you can piece it together pretty easily. I'm going to slowly build up that as an outlet for releasing music that is different from the Kapslap vibes.
Do you see this music, this ongoing, like now I would call this like a passion or a hobby for you since you're no longer doing shows? Do you see that as being like an unintentional consequence of that, or intentional being a marketing tool for like your other money-making ventures?
I think the Kapslap brand that I've built so far just so happened to have overlap with some people that would find my coaching valuable. So that's nice. The music is a hobby now. And until I get my 20 clients and I'm very happy. I'm not trying to blow something up very much anymore. So I'm just releasing to release.
Cool, man.
For the sake of it.
No, that's refreshing to hear. So where can people find you?
You can find me kapslap.xyz. Can get most of my stuff music-wise. There's also links to coaching there. If you want to find the coaching directly, it's Unfolding Coach. And that's all I got.
We'll throw it in the description below. It's been awesome talking to you. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Where are you based right now, LA?
I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Do you pass through New York at all?
Sometimes.
Cool, man. I will make a point to reconnect with you in person. It's been really good having you on the show. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Hey guys, did you know we are in the middle of an algorithm hunger crisis? The algorithm survives on a diet of likes, comments, and subscribes, but it has a bottomless appetite. Like and comment on this video and subscribe to my channel to make sure the algorithm doesn't go to bed hungry tonight. I'll see you in the next one.